Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1637B, and today's date is August 13th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Pieces of the Puzzle Are Coming Together, The More You Know. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like the deep state, they're a little upset today because Peter Strzok, he was terminated from his job. And we can see that the corporate media, they're ranting and raving that this shouldn't have happened. Trump came out and he tweeted, "Will the FBI ever recover its once stellar reputation so badly damaged by Comey, McCabe, Peter Strzok, and his lover, the lovely Lisa Page, and the other top officials now dismissed or fired? So many of the great men and women of the FBI have been hurt by these clowns and losers." And it looks like they took the next step and they got rid of him. Now, he's not fired completely from reports. It seems like he's still working with Mueller in a human resource type of position right now. But it looks like he has his GoFundMe page because it has raised something like $150,000 to pay for his legal fees and his salary that he's lost. And I find it's kind of strange that all these individuals, they all have these GoFundMe pages to help them make money. It's very interesting in what is happening here. Now, something else is happening. Omarosa came out of the woodwork. She had an interview on NBC Meet the Press where a clip of the covert recording was played. Now, she made this shocking revelation that she recorded the president and Kelly while she was in the White House. Now, keep in mind that the Situation Room is a secure conference room located in the basement of the White House where people are required to leave their electronic devices outside before entering. It is run by the National Security Council and contains secure communications equipment which the president uses to communicate with the military and receive intelligence. Sensitive phone calls with world leaders also take place inside this area. The room has sensors to detect cellular signals and bugs. This is a lead-lined box for communication devices at the reception area. There are small lockers outside the Situation Room where officials are supposed to put their phones, Apple Watches, and other things. And it seems kind of odd that she was able to record individuals in this room. And this new disclosure just comes out while she's releasing her new book, Unhinged. Now, Omarosa's out there, and she's saying that she has all these recordings. She has a recording of President Trump using the N-word, and she claims this in her new book, and basically saying that Frank Lutz heard Trump say it. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But Trump came out with all these different tweets and things, and the first one is Wacky Omarosa, who got fired 3 times on The Apprentice, now got fired for the last time. She never made it, never will. She begged me for a job, tears in her eyes. I said, okay. People in the White House hated her. She was vicious, but not smart. I would rarely see her, but heard really bad things, nasty to people. I would constantly miss meetings and work. When General Kelly came on board, he told me she was a loser and nothing but problems. I told him to try working it out, if possible, because she only said great things about me until she got fired. And in his latest tweet on the subject, Trump hinted that Omarosa may have some legal issues because he went on to say that Wacky Omarosa already has a fully signed non-disclosure agreement. And there is an NDA for Omarosa, and it looks like Trump makes everyone sign this. Now, we'll be getting into Omarosa a little while because Q did mention Omarosa, and it leads us in a different direction, and I'll explain that. And I'll explain the reason why. But first, I want to get back to Frank Lutz. Basically, she mentions Frank on page 149 and claims that he heard Trump say the N-word. And Frank Lutz came out and said, whoa, just a minute. And he tweeted, I'm in Omarosa's book on page 149. She claims to have heard from someone who heard from me that I heard Trump use the N-word. Not only is this flat out false, I've never heard such a thing, but Omarosa didn't even make an effort to call or email me to verify. Very shoddy work. So this is very interesting. So as it stands right now, it seems like there is no recording whatsoever. And she's just pushing this agenda. Now, if the recording is really there and the mainstream media does have it now, why don't they release it? Or are they waiting for October to release it as an October surprise? Well, we'll talk about more of this later on, because Q does mention this in the posts. Now, what's very interesting, a Fox senior political analyst, Britt Hume, said on Twitter that the number of migrant children who arrive at the border alone without their families is much higher than the number forcibly separated from their families at the border. And the other mainstream media pundits out there, they went completely crazy over this. And we did a little fact checking and looked into this, and he's actually right. When you look at this, the government has identified 2,634 migrant minors in its care who were forcibly separated from adults. Several times as many alien minors in its care arrived in the U.S. without an adult. The U.S. Border Patrol has apprehended over 40,000 unaccompanied minors so far in fiscal year 2018. So 80% of the minors cared for by HHS arrived in the U.S. alone, unaccompanied, without a parent. They were not separated by the government. Because the law prohibits children from being held in a federal detention facilities, the government separated children from illegal immigrant adults being detained. The Department of Homeland Security referred the children to the Office of Refugee Resettlement within the Department of Health and Human Services. And when we look at this, the number of unaccompanied alien minors apprehended by the Border Patrol around the time the Trump administration implemented the zero tolerance policy is much higher than the 2,634 forcibly separated minors. The Border Patrol apprehended 10,666 minors who arrived at the border without an adult in April and May. They have caught 41,347 unaccompanied alien minors at the border so far in 2018, from October 2017 to July 2018. And a lot of these children had no parents, had nothing, so they were separated from no one. So it looks like this story is absolutely true. Now, out in Afghanistan, we understand this war has been going on for a very long time, and we've been talking about these talks that were happening behind the scenes. Now, one of the Taliban leaders from an organization within the Taliban called Quetta Shura has been quoted as saying that both sides intend to hold the next round of talks in September, and that these will be more specific and focused on key issues. The individual also added that once the breakthrough is started, it will be stunning for all. The comments come on the heels of a string of reports since the end of July, which describe an unprecedented face-to-face meetings held in the Qatari capital, Doha, between a Taliban delegation and officials from the U.S. State Department, led by the senior diplomat Alice Wells. Representatives from the Islamist insurgency were quick to laud discussions at the time too, describing them as very positive, while Washington officials with detailing knowledge of the negotiation remain very tight-lipped. They're not even talking about it. The same way they weren't talking about it with North Korea. They kept that very under the covers. They didn't want anyone to know what was going on. The same thing is happening out in Afghanistan. And I believe once September hits, we're going to hear some news about what is happening out in Afghanistan, and I think it's going to change everything. And we can see that things are changing right now. Now we see the war in Yemen. It is continuing. It is not improving whatsoever. Saudi Arabia continually bombs the people of Yemen. The last one was where they bombed this area where there were children. 50 people were dead, 63 injured. And the Yemenis news organizations out there collected the fragments, and an American journalist was one of the first to track down these fragments that they found, and it turns out to be an Mk-82. And the origin of this, it's a U.S.-made Mk-82 guided bomb. This is created by Lockheed Martin, which was sold to Saudi Arabia. And this was the bomb that was dropped in this area. And we could see at this point, All of these wars need to end. These are the deep state wars that were started to have regime change in all these areas. Remember, in Yemen, the people pushed out their puppet ruler. And, of course, the deep state didn't like this, so they sent Saudi Arabia in there to teach the people a lesson. And they thought this was going to be over in a couple of days. But the Houthis, they fought back. The same thing with Lebanon, Libya, Iraq, Syria, and the rest. Remember, the plan was regime change in all of these countries. Now we see that things are starting to change, where the war in Syria is coming to an end. The troops in all these different locations, they're going to be coming back home. There is no reason for us to keep these troops out in these areas. Same thing with Afghanistan. That war is going to be coming to an end. Now again, you just can't snap your fingers and say, okay, everything has ended. You need to put certain things in place. You need to have discussions, and you need to have a plan to remove all of these troops. Remember, the deep state, they use different methods. They have paid mercenary forces. These are the terrorists. They have covert operations happening in all these countries. They have money flowing in from the poppy fields in Afghanistan. And all of this has to be stopped. And you just can't snap your fingers and have everything just shut down in a split second. It takes time to basically put the plan together and have it come to an end. And that is what is happening right now. We see Russia right now. They're sending special forces into the southern part of Idlib. They're going to be there as an advisory role. And we see right now that this is the last area. I mean, the paid mercenaries, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and the moderate rebels and the rest, their days are numbered here. And before you know it, it's game over. We already see Russia, France, Germany, Turkey. They're all getting together to have a Syrian summit. And the question is, why are they doing this now? Well, the Russian side proceeds from the fact that Russia and Turkey bear special responsibility for peace, security, and stability in Syria and in the entire region. The ministers will discuss preparations for a four-lateral summit of the Russian, Turkish, German, and French leaders on the Syrian settlement that is planned to be held soon. The sides will look at ways to launch the process of political settlement in Syria through maintaining an inclusive national dialogue on the basis of generally recognizing principles of international law. What they're doing here is they're laying everything out to remove the troops from this country and actually having Assad take back control of the country. And it's all happening right now. This is not something out in the future. It is happening right now. And before you know it, all of a sudden, there will be announcements made, just like in North Korea. Now, Q has dropped many different posts, additional posts, but I want to go back to post 1848 with this Q400 plane for just a second. And post 1848 is Iron Eagle. And this whole thing is very, very strange. And remember, the hijacker, his name is Richard Russell. And we also know that there's a submarine, which is the USS Richard B. Russell. And again, Q is out there, says, do you believe in coincidences? And what's very strange about this is that this individual, Richard Russell, is a baker. And this is kind of odd. Now, when we look at the sub, we see something very strange. The history of this sub, and if you look down at the motto, it says they saved the best for last. Now, some annons thought that this related back to Q's older drops talking about saving the best for last. The plane crashed on Ketron Island, an island with 17 inhabitants, whose name means true victory. And again, Q keeps on telling us about Iron Eagle, and if you go back to the movie, it's about deception and things like that. Now, an Annan put up images from a weather cam, and it looks like they saw something there. And when you look at it, it looks like there is a missile flying through the sky, or maybe it's a shooting star, but many people are saying it's a missile. I mean, you can look at it and, decide for yourself. And we also have the flight path where the plane went in circles and made a Q symbol. And when we look at all this, you have to start to wonder, what is this all about? Now, I know a lot of people have been writing in. They're saying that you can use Microsoft, Flight Simulator. But when you're in the plane itself and you're flying it for the first time and you're flying around making these circle maneuvers, it's very difficult to maintain this course and to do these type of maneuvers without ever being in a plane. Because you have a video game in front of you, but you're not feeling the movement. You're not feeling the plane. You're not feeling how it's, going down, moving up, moving to the left, moving to the right. You're not feeling the actual plane move. And that is a very big difference, especially when you're flying where you can get mixed up between the sky and the ground and the water and things like that. But Annan put all this together. And this is what the Annan said. Richard Bebo Russell happened to have the same name as a submarine named after a U.S. Senator. U.S. Senator Russell opposed racial desegregation and was about the typical plantation Democrat. Senator Russell was a member of the Warren Commission. A submarine was named after Russell. The submarine was used in Operation Ivy Bells to tap underwater communication cables with the CIA and NSA. The motto of the submarine is basically a cute quote, "We save the best till last." The USS Richard Russell carried 4x UUM-44 SUB-ROC nuke missiles. Russell is one of the 13 Illuminati family bloodlines. Richard Bebo Russell was a baker. He owned a bakery with his wife, baking bread and assorted sweets. Bebo is hailed as a hero on 4chan and Twitter under the Sky King hashtag. Sky King is an emergency action message thought to be used for coordinating nuclear bombers and submarines. On 8/8, an EAM went out that said, "Kill Bill Time 12 Authority TP." The same day Sky King crashes his plane, QAnon singles out Bill Maher's tweet. The Sky King EAM originated at AFB Andrews. Richard Bebo Russell said, "Damn it, Andrew, people's lives are at stake here." Now, Ketron Island was owned at one point by an insurance salesman from Alaska, J.C. Morris. That insurance salesman was part of a delegation who visited Eisenhower to press for statehood for Alaska. The flight path forms the letter Q around the island. A resident, Gary Lundgren, of Ketron Island, ran a company named Ketron Island Enterprises for processing sewage. Lundgren fled the USA for Panama and is regarded as a financial criminal. He was involved in shady dealings with the Trump Ocean Club in Panama. Lundgren paid off a bunch of condo owners and tried to oust Trump as the property manager. The Bombardier Q400. Russell managed to commandeer a Bombardier Q400 airplane. In previous drops, Q pointed Annans towards a plane crash in Buffalo, New York. A lady named Beverly Eckert, 9/11 activist, was on that plane. She had just met with Obama days before. That plane was also a Bombardier Q400. So, if I had to guess, with everything we've just reviewed in mind, Richard Bebo Russell isn't a real guy. He's a cover story for an NSA agent who was a baker. More likely, Bebo was an NSA asset that had been in place for months, in an area that NSA had been monitoring for a while due to heightened levels of cabal activity. Now, what's very strange is that there was a mysterious military spy plane that has been flying circles over Seattle for days. A very unique USAF surveillance aircraft flew over this area. Now, the aircraft, which goes by call sign SPUD-21 and wears a nondescript flat gray paint job with the only visible markings being United States Air Force serial on its tail, is a CASA CN-235-300 transport aircraft that has been extensively modified for surveillance missions. And it does show up that this plane was in the area, circling the entire area. Maybe Q will come back and clarify what actually happened, but when we start to look at this, we can see that, this might have been a diversion to stop a missile launch. Let's move on to post 1851. where Q puts out a picture of Bill Maher and puts out a lot of different things here. And Q says, "These people are sick. Sometimes the truth is right in front of you. You people are a disease. We the people are the cure. Q." Now, basically what this is all about, this is about Bill Maher and James Gunn. Now, James Gunn is the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. And Q is pointing out that the writer for Bill Maher is James Gunn's brother. And when you look at this, you can see Matt Gunn is the brother of James and writes for Maher. Sure enough, Matt Gunn is one of the Maher's longtime writers. And we look at this and he definitely is. Let's move on to post 1852 because Q continually puts up different tweets by Bill Maher. And the latest one on post 1852 is, "Oh my God, what did Michelle Bachmann do to her hair? I thought I stumbled on an ad for Rise of the Planet of the Apes." And basically Bill Maher compares Bachmann to one of the Planet of the Apes characters. And then Q just gave the link to this tweet that Bill Maher made. Now, post 1853, Q put up a link to Twitter, NBC News, and this is about how to delete old tweets. And Q wrote, "Do you believe in coincidences? Truth to power? Q." Now, we'll come back to that in a second because we need to go to post 1854 and the rest that has to do with Bill Maher and many other individuals. Now, NBC right now, they're gearing up for that big report to drop at the Daily Beast, detailing the culture of abuse at NBC. The Daily Beast is getting ready to release a piece on sexual misconduct on NBC. So on post 1854, Q put up all these different tweets from James Gunn. And some of these tweets are what he said in the past. And Q wrote, "The choice to know will be yours." So if we look at some of these tweets, what do we see? Well, we see something very interesting. And if we go back to 2010, 2011, James Gunn was tweeting very strange things. One of his tweets wrote, "The Hardy Boys and the mystery of what it feels like when Uncle Bernie fists me." Another one is, "This hotel shower is the weakest ever. Felt like a 3-year-old boy was peeing on my head." And you can go to the X22 report and read the rest. You can go to the Q post and read the rest, but you get the general idea of what is going on here. And then Q puts up this link, and it's to Twitter, and this is about Satan. And the account is S8N, which is Satan, and it's kind of strange. And when you look at this, you can see that this account is where people go to, and of course their information is hidden. This is where they go to to connect to different groups. And I think what Q was doing right here was not telling everyone to go there and say Q's coming to get you and things like that. What Q wanted was everyone to do research and find out who these hidden accounts are and who they belong to, and look at what they're saying on this site. Let's move on to post 1855. Q put up a Twitter link to Donald Trump, Twitter link to Maria Bartiromo, and wrote, "Boom, boom, boom, boom. Why did NBC have a confidential con call yesterday with a few of its news affiliates? The need to remove potentially sensitive tweets. Panic." Put up a link to NBC status. Has the Media Matters been hired to locate and identify potentially sensitive tweets from known characters? The more you know. And again, we go back to the NBC tweet, to their report, how to delete and remove tweets. Remember, all these individuals have been putting up these tweets and these messages for a very long time. And it looks like what they're doing right now is they're sending the message out there on how to get rid of them. And we know that there's a story coming up in the Daily Beast about what has been happening in NBC. And I think they're telling a lot of other people, this is how you need to get rid of all this information. Now, what's very interesting about all this is that a UN report came out, and this is a deeply disturbing report, has finally been released by the United Nations, detailing the rampant sexual exploitation of children by UN employees that is widespread throughout multiple countries. And it looks like the UN, might be moving children back and forth. They're having sex with young children for certain favors. And this is a huge, widespread problem. Now, the agency workers are from local and international NGOs as well as UN agencies, and they are among the prime sexual exploiters of the refugee children. And again, Q continually tells us about Haiti, 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 and I think it's going on all over the world here. Let's move on to post 1856. Q put up, "How stupid are these people?" Put up a link to CNN video, John Kelly, Omarosa tape, Meet the Press, and this is about Omarosa coming out with all this information. Q wrote, integrity violations equals leaks, recording and privileges, and confidential meeting with the White House. What documents are signed prior to entering the White House? The NDA. What documents were added by POTUS specifically prior to allowing staff to join his administration? The NDA. What documents were added later by POTUS specifically targeting leaks? Why was fake news infuriated by this? And he gave a sample of all these different links to Washington Post, the Daily Beast, CNBC, where it says Trump's non-disclosure agreements came with him to the White House. Former officials slam reported White House non-disclosure agreements. They didn't like it whatsoever. Why would a person openly broadcast a criminal violation? So why did Omarosa go onto the corporate media, the mainstream media, and purposely broadcast a criminal violation? Do they feel protected? Who do they report to? If known in advance, could this be an advantage? These people are stupid. Enjoy the show. So Omarosa is out there, and we discussed this before, and she's pushing a book, and she's pushing that she has these tapes and how bad Trump is, and Trump is out there saying that she's a loser and all these things. But when you listen to Meet the Press at minute 13:17 in the video, Omarosa says you have to have your own back, because otherwise you'll look back and you'll see 17 knives in your own back. Chuck Todd then asked her if she would approve the White House releasing whatever HR files they have, listing whatever integrity violations Omarosa committed. Omarosa approves wholeheartedly and invited the White House to do so. Think they'll take her up on that offer? Is everyone getting the picture here of what's going on? Q is saying that Omarosa is a total White House plant, one who is still on board with the Team Trump and the MAGA agenda, and who is now using these tapes, which totally weren't recorded with everyone's knowledge, as a pretense to control a news cycle, eventually leading to some kind of significant disclosure. So the Mockingbird media, the corporate media, the mainstream media, report on this otherwise criminal violations because they feel protected by the CIA, when in fact they've just been baited by the white hats. And it looks like Omarosa is trapping the corporate media and the deep state. Go back to Q's post. Why would a person openly broadcast a criminal violation? Do they feel protected? Who do they report to? If known in advance, could this be an advantage? So it looks like this is known in advance, and this is an advantage. Let's move on to post 1857. Q, Anonymous, posted this on August 12th. Q, you made the grade. Great story, positive, quotes Q. This is coming out of the Gateway Pundit. Q said fair and balanced. The Gateway Pundit has always been pretty solid. Over the last week, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, NBC, CBS, Bloomberg, the New Yorker, Vox, and the Daily Beast have all written a plethora of 20 articles on the QAnon movement, and all using highly similar talking points to marginalize the movement. Instead, it's just pushing it into the cultural mainstream, the Streisand effect. The mainstream media will never learn, and this is coming out of the Gateway Pundit. This is post 1858, August 12th. Anonymous put this up. Teresa, and I believe her last name is Strzok. She tweeted, "I don't think @real Donald Trump understands. He's being removed from that office one way or another. If the law fails America, we will remove him with our bare hands. He has only 1/5 of America's support, and they're mostly cowardly, out of shape, poor, uneducated rednecks." Now, underneath that tweet, it says the following: "I don't know about you all, but I'm in great shape. Not poor, highly educated, although I'm in the country, I'm not a redneck, and most definitely not a coward." Bitch threatening to remove POTUS with her bare hands. Q responded, "You are the majority, all capital letters, by far and growing. Fake news purpose is to project false narratives." And they're basically trying to say that the movement isn't that big, and they're trying to use your mind to convince you of all of this. At least that's what they're trying to do. Post 1859, Q put up a post of Anonymous, and this is the Satan tweet. "I miss you @real Donald Trump." Q wrote, "This Twitter account was referenced for a specific reason. Holds many questionable messages from people of power and influence. These accounts are run by big names." So when we go back to the Satan account on Twitter, Q is telling us that there are certain individuals here that are big names, influencers, that are posting on this site. Now, of course, they're hiding their real identity, but Q wanted us to figure out who these individuals are. And then a lot of people went onto this site and they started to post and tweet a lot of things on the site that Q's here, Q's coming to get you. And I don't think this is what Q really wanted us to do here. I think Q wanted us to research this and figure out who is actually on here, because I believe there's politicians, I believe there's Hollywood movie stars, and many others. So you can see right now, everything that is happening, all the pieces are starting to come together. And it looks like from Omarosa to Trump tweeting out about all the different things that are happening with the IG report, laying the breadcrumbs. Strzok is now fired. And we can start to see that things are starting to happen very, very quickly. And we're going to see more. And the mainstream media, they're going to react to this. They're going to fight with everything they have and throw this out there. And I think this is why Omarosa, if this is what Q is telling us, if this is a diversion right now to put their news cycle onto something else and make them believe that this is really happening, and it turns out to be completely false, which we can see it most likely already is, because we already have individuals like Frank Luntz coming out there saying, yeah, that this is not true. He never said this, and Omarosa never really called him. So it looks like they have the corporate media running this story, and of course more of them are going to run it, and they're going to harp on this, and this is being done on purpose to trap the deep state, to get them in a legal bind. Because remember, Q in post 1856 laid it out that integrity violations equal leaks, recordings, a privileged and confidential meeting. They did this in the Situation Room. They also had an NDA. And the corporate media, the mainstream media, the deep state, they think they're safe. And they're not. So we can see right now that this was done on purpose. And we're going to see everything come out very soon. It's all building to that. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.